Everything you've been doing so far, such as your extracurriculars, your grade, maintaining your GPA, has been consciously or subconsciously for a better chance at college admissions.
We've been conditioned to believe that college is our end-all, be-all, the final goal.
And that's great! It's one of the best things you can be as a student, ambitious and working towards your future.
But there's a fine line between motivation and pressure, between ambition and losing sight of yourself. And that's what we are here to break down.
We're seeing exactly that play out as we hear about the cases of Princeton students taking their own lives in the past few years. 8 suicides, 4 years.
I want to begin by giving context about what's really been going on. I want to start by mentioning that all of these students have been students of color, which obviously alarmed the student body, and it made them think that maybe there's something that is not that is making our counseling not accessible to them, or maybe not as approachable to them. Like, we have to make sure that our services for mental health are accommodating to all different kinds of people. But that's not the most startling thing. One of the other more startling things is that all of those students in the past decade have been juniors in their third year of college and undoubtedly facing the stress of their impending senior year, where they have to worry about internships, landing job placements, maybe their further education, whatever it may be that's going on. It's just a very critical time period. So the way that timeline works out is both startling, but at the same time not surprising, because academic pressure being at its all-time high. It should also be noted that 2 of these deaths that occurred before 2020 were during January, before 2020 in January, the fall term final exams used to take place. The other thing lining up with these timelines is that the another 2, which means that makes basically 4 out of the 8, were during May, which is obviously when they have their final term exam. I mean, May is always a big month for us as well because APs, testing, things like that. But that's the way their timeline kind of falls into place, and falls into place with our theory that it is the larger issue of academic pressure at play, and because a lot of these incidents are occurring obviously at times of crisis. Now, the final thing I want to leave you with is the fact that this is nothing new at this university. In fact, since, according to the Daily Princetonian, since 1876, which was, if I'm not wrong, a century and a half ago, there have been, believed, 24 undergraduates, 7 graduates, 7 professors, and 4 staff members who have died by taking their own lives at the university that have been reported to the Daily Princetonian since 1876. So this issue, not recent, has been festering up for so long, but in a lot of those times there was never the opportunity to seek help for it, or maybe it was, kind of hush hush, not spoken about, not even just for the purpose of reputation, but because that was just the norm at the time. But now these things are still happening. We've had 8 in the past decade or so, and now we have the tools, the resources, and the platforms to make a difference about this. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to break it down in our discussion.
For this episode, we looked into them and we realized this really has nothing to do with the school itself, but more to do with the deep-seated issue of academic pressure, which is seeping further and further into our daily lives.
We wanted to take in some personal insight about how academic pressure looks like for different people. Over here, we have one of my friends, Vainavi, talking about how she manages academic pressure. Let's see what she says. Okay, how do you manage academic stress?
For me, the way I manage academic stress is probably just doing things that I like to do after school's over and like my free time. So that would probably be like reading or watching TV.
Okay, thank you.
The next person the mic to is none other than my own friend from New Jersey, Prisha. So we asked her the same prompt. What do you do What activities or things do you do to cope with your academic pressure? And here's the response that we got. She says, honestly, academic stress is such a big thing, especially in a world where academic success is so valued to the point where mental health can be impacted negatively. So I'm a big believer in the importance and the power of de stressing. She says, for me, I think de stressing needs to be somewhat controlled because it can be hard to come back from a long period of a break. She compares it to coming back to school after a long summer vacation because after that, no one wants to go right back into the academic grind. And the longer the break, the harder it gets to come back into your momentum. So, she says, I find that no matter how I de stress, it shouldn't be for like an unreasonably long, extended period of time because I'm just making it harder for myself to bounce back. As for the ways that I de stress, she says she often plays with her puppy. Well, he's two, but he's still a puppy at heart, and practices Taekwondo. She goes on to detail that playing with her puppy is fun, takes her mind off of everything, and makes her happy. And she goes on to describe Taekwondo as an activity she's been pursuing for a really long time. So it naturally makes her happy, and it uses physical exercise as a way to de stress, which I think are both great things because they don't have to be very time consuming. And it's just something which you can channel your energy into and completely shift gears so you can clear your mind and come back to whatever you were doing. So it's perfect, and thank you so much for sharing.
First off, we're going to discuss what contributes to academic pressure. Do we see any personal connections? Why is academic pressure so huge nowadays?
Well, I think the very core thing of this is the need to prove yourself, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like it could be if you come from a lower socioeconomic background, you feel the need to make a name for yourself and have better for you and your family.
Yeah, I also think it's because of like increased competition because immigration rate is so high, which is good because we love people coming in and we love like new opportunities for all people. But that also means there's only a couple seats left on in these like top tier universities for like more and more people coming together, especially in the US, where people not only in the US but like from all around the world come in. So that's really where competition weighs in, and that can lead to many questionable choices later on as well because at the end people want to meet their goal and most people don't really care how they get their goal.
Absolutely. The competition thing is absolutely. I mean, I've lived in so many areas where it's so densely populated with Indian. Absolutely. If everyone is being competitive, everyone is looking for their own edge. And also, people like to differentiate themselves through their work and their success because it kind of validates all the things, all the work that you put in. Because if you can't stand out, it feels like no one's seeing your efforts. If that.
Okay, yeah, so comparison, right? I feel like comparison has a lot of sorry, we're talking about competition, right? I think the main reason why competition is so like toxic nowadays is because of comparison, right? Because like so many people
Uh
want
huh.
to
Yeah.
compete for those like set of awards and like there's only so many awards you can get. And that leads to so many different effects like mentally like it lowers your self-esteem. You don't give yourself enough credit. Like just because someone else is doing something that you consider like much more successful doesn't mean that you aren't doing
Hmm.
your best. And I feel like people need to stop comparing themselves to others. Yes, comparison is good in a sense to kind of like know where you are in a particular process, like your college admissions process, but it shouldn't be the reason why you feel like you're not doing enough. It shouldn't be your main factor pushing you. It should be your goals, your mindset, not the fact that others are doing this and I'm not.
Absolutely. And that's why, I mean, like we said in the beginning, there's a very fine line between things that motivate you and things that will actually have the counter effect, demotivate you. And just like you were saying, it makes you feel like you're not doing enough, which is counterproductive to your own success because now you're wasting time and energy, negative energy towards yourself when you should be putting that into something productive for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, when you're comparing yourself to others, you like what I said before, right? And I think you said this too. People will do anything to get to their goal. And that also leads to like
Absolutely.
several different forms of like academic dishonesty, right? Because
Hmm.
at this point, I don't care that like most people don't care that they're they don't care how they're getting their award, they just care that they're getting their award. So
Exactly.
whether that be through like cheating or through like manipulating the system or through bribing, people will do that like just to get their award.
Exactly. And while it might seem like a good idea in the moment and you'll get that like 1 second of gratification if you get away with it and you get the grade you want, but A, you're not learning, but also if you don't care about that, you're also bringing yourself down a destructive spiral. You're going to feel guilty, you're going to feel anxious, and you're essentially going to end up feeling like you didn't earn your score.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of people doing very questionable stuff just to achieve their like their goals, and like when they get caught doing their stuff, even though like I don't believe everything a person does, like yes, people are cheating, but I don't believe they're like cheating in every single test and they aren't studying at all, like in most cases, because at the end they still care about their ambitions. So like if you get caught for it, that's gonna damage your reputation, and like uh I know a couple people who are like valedictorians and salutarians, but later found out that like the school board found out that they cheated, and then they were taken off the
Uh,
squad. They weren't expelled from college per se, but like they weren't admitted into any college. So like it
hmm
really leads to bigger consequences than
Like
it thinks.
blacklisted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And like
You
in
know,
colleges,
yeah.
it's even bigger. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just gonna say, like, we've had cases even in like the past year at our school, and the thing is, I feel like forces you to question what you're doing all of this for. Because if all you're doing it for is to so-called like make a name for yourself or just become, successful, be known as that, if that's what you're doing it for, then you're not gonna feel the guilt of what you did. But if what you're doing it for is to make yourself proud, to make, everyone else proud, then eventually you'll feel the weight of what you did. So I think it just forces you to question your own morals.
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like when so many people are like engaging in academic dishonesty, a lot of your peers also get demotivated because like there's
Mhm.
only a certain top 10% or like top 10 spots, right? And
Mhm.
especially because like we're both from areas that have such huge school populations. There's so many kids. I
Yep.
think my class is like 1,500 or something. There's only
Mhm.
like 100 of them that make it into the top 10%. And with like so many people doing academic
Mhm.
dishonesty, it kind of makes you feel like, hey, people that are cheating are gonna get those top 10% spot anyways. Why try? Like it demotivates not only people
Exactly.
that are doing academic dishonesty, but also like their peers around them who care about getting those spots.
And one more thing on that topic before we do move on. A common like logic I hear for justifying cheating is, oh, well, everyone else is doing it, so I might as well not like fall behind or whatever, right? But that's not how it works. Like if we were in the Olympics and you see that all the other athletes are, I don't know, taking steroids, taking drugs, things that'll make them perform better, that doesn't mean that you go down the same route because you're going to end up just like them. You're going to be just as far down as them, down in the same like dark spiral. So,
Yeah, right. Because at the end, you're doing it. You can't just justify it on other people because you're also the
exactly.
other people doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. Be better than them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, moving on. I also think like in high school, especially when there's so many like when you're trying to compete and stuff, it also leads to
Mhm.
like so much burnout because like there's
Absolutely.
just so much like I don't know, course load or homework or just like quality of work because there's so many people. You want to make sure your work is the best, whether that's your college essay or just like your scholarship essay or a presentation. Especially when like spots become limited and like burnout is like such a big issue with high
Mhm.
schoolers or even like people in any school, like even in middle school. It's such a huge issue. Like it's actually crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, when people are so chronically and in such large numbers burnt out, especially, oh my God, do you know that time between winter break and spring break? That like
Oh,
long stretch of school you get where you don't get many breaks.
yeah,
The
yeah,
reason I'm bringing this up is because that's like burnout central and that's also academic central. So
yeah.
the quality of your work, the quality of your learning just goes down. And you might think it's just because, oh, it's like the year is ending, I'm like losing my whatever, but you're genuinely burned out. Like, look
Mm,
at how you did in the beginning of the year versus now. You can do it.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Also, low-key, I feel like that period is also because the weather's so bad. But yeah, what you're saying is
That's
also true.
valid.
Yeah.
That's valid.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, it's actually like procrastination and brain fog and things. It's like it happens to so many
Mhm.
people, and like there's really like I'm not blaming the people that get it because like I feel like we're
Absolutely.
all stuck in this huge system where everyone's trying to
Mhm.
compete and everyone's trying to get everything like all the spots and like it's not their
Yes.
fault, but they're also suffering because of it.
Absolutely. And I've been there, done that.
We
Multiple
all have.
times.
It's okay.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the thing about the one other thing about burnout is it's a like it's a destructive cycle, and it's really hard to end because you burn out, you don't perform well, you try to overdo it again, and the cycle repeats, and it does nothing for your mental health or honestly for your performance. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, and like in fact, the percentage of high school students like feeling sad and hopeless increased like so much over 10 years. Like I think there's one common statistic thrown out that the average anxiety, like how much anxiety we feel as high
Ooh, I've heard
schoolers
this one.
is like yeah, that's like of a mental patient.
Mhm.
I don't remember the year, but it was something in the 1900s. But like
Yeah, I
yeah,
believe
we'd
it's
be
like
like diagnosed
1940s.
in hospitals if we were there now. Sorry, what were you saying?
Sorry, no, nothing. I was just saying I think it was 1940s, but I'm not sure. But I've heard this statistic thrown out a bunch of times. That
Yeah.
should raise concern, but the more we normalize it, like you know how we always say that like, oh, everyone goes through it, everyone's dealing with it. We don't say it to belittle it. We kind of say it so that we seem like we're not self-absorbed. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I'm not absorbed in my own feelings. I understand that everyone else goes through it. But the more we say everyone deals with it, it belittles what we're actually dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you know how like suicide has been normalized as well in the sense that, you know,
Mhm.
if a person says, "Oh my God," like
Yeah.
I'm gonna like I don't know, I'm not gonna say it because like
Yeah,
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 but like
no.
you know what I'm talking about. And like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
because you don't know if they're really thinking that or if they're like
Mhm.
actually if they're just joking around, right? There's a really thin line of
Exactly.
like no one's also like stigma and all, right? No, or like people are so afraid to come out and like actually
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
do something about their issues.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to get to that later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I also think like it leads to like so much isolation because one, you're stuck doing so much work and like you just feel depressed because I feel like you think you're giving so much and you're not getting things out of it. Also, when you we're trying to
Exactly.
work so hard, like naturally you'll be stuck in home, right? Because you won't get any external time. And like it's important for people our age to get out and just like
Mhm.
enjoy the world, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. I feel like in order for either aspect to like thrive, like if you want to thrive academically, then you also have to be thriving. Like you don't have to be thriving personally, but you have to have an active like social life or a personal life, and vice versa, because they have to balance each other out. Otherwise, one can't exist without the other.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like for positions in like really big clubs and stuff, you can't just get
Mhm.
it from like good grades,
That's
right?
also true.
You need to go out
Mhm.
and talk to people. Like some of the most like successful people I know who've gotten into great colleges are one of the most like social people I've ever met. And I feel like that's
Outgoing,
not just a
exactly.
coincidence. There's a reason behind it. You can't earn these
Absolutely.
positions to put on your college app or just like earn them because you earned
Mhm.
them, right? Without being social, without making friends,
Mhm.
without people knowing you.
Yeah, honestly, that's very true. And I also feel like if you are solely social and don't focus on your academics at all, you end up having nothing to come back to. Meaning, like you'll probably wind up in like meaningless drama or something like that because you don't have any other substance to your life, if that makes sense. So you've got
Yeah.
to be social, but you can't get too wrapped up into it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because obviously there's a balance. You have to have a balance between,
Absolutely.
like you said, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So why do you think people like, we were talking about why people don't
Mhm.
get the help they need? Why do you think that happens? Like, why don't people actually acknowledge that they need help?
Absolutely. I mean, even if I think there's so many factors that play into this, both like facilities wise, like the lack of availability of facilities we have, but also like stigma wise. Um, because I think that first off, the first thing I want to mention is the cultural stigma around this whole entire conversation, where it's like if you see someone like visibly displaying the signs, there'll be a common like tactic to just be like, oh, they're just being like that, or they're just going through a phase, like people say. And eventually they realize that if no one's gonna acknowledge it, there's no point.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like it has to do with things politically as well because I feel like funds don't go into things like the National Suicide Hotline because like even if you call them, I feel like you'll either be left hold or like I've heard. And I
Mhm.
think the Trump administration recently shut down the National Helpline for LGBTQ plus people who are
Yes,
also
I did hear
people at
about
the end
that.
of the day. Like it doesn't matter what you think
Mhm.
of them or if you don't support them or support them. They're people and when they need help, you need to give them help.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like going along with that, there's a lack of mental health facilities in the United States. I mean, according to some statistics that I saw on the National Center for Educational Statistics, only 49% of public schools in the school year 2021 to 2022 provided diagnostic mental health assessments. And that's the first step to rooting out mental illness in schools.
Yeah. Yeah, because most mental illnesses come from school, right? It's actually crazy that it's like less than half. It's all like it's close to half, but
Mhm.
still.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think also like only 38% of public schools actually provide treatment and services for these mental health disorders. And like I feel like a lot of people also say that
Mm.
mental health disorders are just like they're not even a real thing. Like depression, it's just in your head. Yes, it's in your head and it is a real thing. Like you're thinking it mentally, that's why it's called a mental disorder.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting because when let's say someone was diagnosed with like a very difficult illness, like I don't know, like let's say it's a kidney illness, okay? And we would and they were like not able to leave their house. They had to have a lot of accommodations. Nobody would say, "Oh my goodness, like it's just in your like body," or "Oh my goodness, like why can't you just get over it? This is like all your fault." No one would blame them for a physical illness because it's not their fault. So then why are people blamed for a mental illness?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like physical wellness and like when you get like physically damaged and things, that's because
Mhm.
of your physical environment, right? And like your
Yeah,
mental damage is because of your mental environment. Like there's both things
absolutely.
your environment plays into. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, in fact
And
like
sometimes sorry.
no,
Go
no,
on,
no,
go
you
on.
go ahead. You go ahead.
No, finish. I'll
Okay,
continue after.
I was just saying only like 38% of schools with like fewer than 300 students offer
Mhm.
diagnostic services. And it's important to like recognize it's important to diagnose people with like whatever illness they have, whether that be mental or physical. Just because you can't
Mhm.
see it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Exactly. I mean, hey, if someone had leukemia, you can't see their white blood cells, but hey, it exists. It sure as
Yeah,
hell exists. And if you see this, you can see their physical symptoms, their outward symptoms. You can do the same for a mental illness.
yeah.
And sometimes physical illnesses are because of, let's say someone had a drinking problem that could damage their liver. Yeah, people might say that happened because of their lifestyle. But at the end of the day, they feel sympathy for them because they know they can't help what they're going through now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah. So like what are these effects on like larger scale, right? So we've talked about effects
Hmm.
on people. What is like a larger effect of this?
Well, the very first larger effect I feel like is if people are going into, you know, their workplace and like the actual real world with the same mindset they had back in school of comparison, constant comparison. If you feel like you're doing your job and your coworker's doing this thing better, so I'm not as good, you're that's not how a successful person thinks. Like a successful if you're trying to be successful, you're not going to do that by constantly comparing and putting down yourself.
Right. Because there's always going to be one person that's like so-called more successful over you. It depends on like how you take it yourself, right? Yeah. Also, I feel like
Exactly.
when you are used to this cycle of academic dishonesty, that's probably going to bleed into your workforce and even your
Oh,
college life
100%.
as well. Yeah, like especially with AI, like AI is great in like many different cases, but plagiarism and like things where you make AI do your work, right? That's not
Yeah,
really like you doing your work. That's literally you contributing to like robots replacing humans, and then you complain about why your
100%.
job's being taken by robots when you're making those robots do your job.
That's so true. And I feel like going along with that, if we get into the habit of that now, which we honestly are, we're getting more and more accustomed to it. You go into the workforce and no one's gonna have any original ideas. Everything is gonna be faulty. So, you're creating your own future if you're completely relying on it for everything.
Yeah, yeah. Because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, these like AI bots, they take in information from the web, right?
Mhm.
It's all on the web. Like these are
Exactly.
all ideas generated by humans, and those like set of datas and like those articles circulate among all AI. So like as you said, nothing's original. The only original
Exactly.
thing we have is creativity.
Mhm.
And like I feel like humans are the only creatures like that have, wait, I might be wrong, but most like comparatively, like
Yeah.
robots obviously, we have more creativeness. Like they don't have the ability to think at all. Like they rely on the data we feed them.
Absolutely. And I feel like we forget that because if we're not contributing anything original, everything out there is going to be artificial. And
Hmm.
sorry to sort of slightly reel back to the topic, but this is definitely so relevant to education and in this entire issue. But
Yeah, yeah.
going back to the thing about comparison and also setting us up for success later on, I feel like the country of Finland, as well as its neighboring countries, is a really great example because they were, I believe, number 7 in quality of life according to the U.S. News Report for 2025. And they've only got one standardized test, and it's voluntary, and it's for people who want to pursue higher education, but not everyone pursues it. But the reason I'm bringing up that fact is that I see a link between these two things. I see a correlation. If they're getting rid of as much stress and pressure and comparison as they can in the way they structure their school system, it inevitably results in more productive, happier citizens, which contributes to the quality of life.
Yeah, totally. I think I see your point as well. I also think that maybe sometimes that can like lead to like I think a lot of pressure because like there's only one test, right? So I don't
That's
know
fair.
if they like retake it or things like that. But like in
Hmm.
general, that could because there's only one standardized test, you're like I have to do good in this one test. It's the most important test of my life.
Understandable.
But like definitely what you said as well, right? There's definitely a correlation between these two things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what do you think we can do to take action on, say, a community level, a policy one, maybe even in our day-to-day lives to combat these issues?
Yeah, so I was thinking like school-wise, what we can do is we could like delay school in a sense, like make the timing of
Mhm.
schools like, a bit delayed back or like reduce homework load. They both serve the same purpose. That if you like
Mhm.
reduce your homework load, that means you don't go to sleep at like 2 at night and then you can like actually rest and sleep deprivation is like such a big issue right now. And like
Mhm.
people need their sleep, right? Otherwise it'll lead like brain fog and like all these different other
Yes.
issues. Or you could like delay school by like a couple of hours, and that could give your students some more sleep. Especially this would help people that like do different extracurriculars, especially like,
Mhm.
sports or bands or like
Mhm.
debates, going to competitions and not having the time to like do
Absolutely.
your homework and like if you go to bed at like 2, you at least can make it up at like in the morning, you can sleep a bit later compared if you wake up at like
Absolutely.
7.
I honestly feel that way. Like, genuinely, just whenever we have a delayed opening at school, like back in New Jersey, we'd have them if there was like snow predicted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Genuinely, I've never felt more energized and awake in school. Like, never felt more interested in school too.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I feel like in India, at least for my parents, their school starts at like 10 or 11. I don't know if the
How?
same. I don't know because, but like their culture is a bit different because they still wake up at 6, but like they go to tuition, like external classes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a whole. Listen, if we got into I mean, definitely should mention it. But if we got into our home country, we would be here for a whole nother hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. What do you think we could do like policy wise?
Well, policy-wise, this is one of my favorite things to think about, but it's also so abstract and out of our hands. But I think that the very first step is more research and more effective research. Because I'm going to be honest, you're sitting at the doctor's office and right before you have your physical, they hand you a little thing that says, have you experienced this? Sometimes, maybe, never. Like, a piece of paper is not enough for a screening of a mental illness. You have to see the person's whole, what they call it medically is called their affect, which is how they are outwardly. You have to take all those things into factor. A year is not enough to determine that. So research definitely is the first thing. Second, I think both the funding and improvement of social emotional learning. And I think this is really cool to get youth involved in their as leaders in social emotional learning because that'll get them engaged. And who doesn't want leadership? Um, and it'll make the social emotional learning programs more relevant and tailored to people our age.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Like we were talking about statistics, right? How so many few schools offer access to mental health resources,
Mhm.
and we should definitely like increase that, right? And we should get like other people to talk about it because to be fair, our generation, especially like teens, are the kinds of
Uh
people
huh.
that follow all those big stars, right? They don't low-key, they don't care what they're doing, even if it's wrong. If a star does it, that means that it's cool if these
Mhm.
stars pick up the weight and like they because there's always been
Absolutely.
something they've gone through, right? Because there's like so many
Mhm.
things they've gone through to get to this position. I
Mhm.
know Taylor Swift, like obvious because I wrote an entire article on her back in seventh grade. She went through like eating disorder and like she also went through depression, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, if you put the spotlight on these stars and like if you just like refine their spotlight and they
Mhm.
just use it to like spread more awareness like they do politically, right? I think
100%.
yeah, so that could bring people out more and they could like talk about it more. Even like music wise, right? I think like
Mhm.
relatively they've been like now there's so many different kinds of music and I feel like there's also music that helps like relates to mental health and that's really good because like when you listen to these
Mhm.
lyrics, when you listen to the music, when you listen to the artist, you kind of begin to relate to it and like you kind of become to like recognize you're like whatever you're feeling, right? And that's good because
Mhm.
when you recognize something, you know to get help for it. But you won't get help for it unless like other people around you are getting help for it.
100%. And I think one thing that you touched upon a lot in this is the need for role models. You need leaders that you genuinely like that are going to set a good example for you. And it genuinely it frustrates me so much when people have influence over the youth and they use it in the wrong way. Like they don't use it to inspire them to do better. That is one of the most frustrating things because they need help so badly. They need an example.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like yeah, when you get on the spotlight, you should be using it to positively affect people. Just because you
Mhm.
have negative thoughts, like yeah, like just don't like go ahead and spread that and make your entire fandom,
Mhm.
whatever, believe uh those thoughts. Because at the end of the day, you're not really creating good fandom. You're not creating like good people, right? Because you're influencing these people. You're an influencer. That's your job.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
it for
pretty much.
good. I remember
Exactly. And
like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I remember like Taylor Swift like last year during like voting time, she put out once she put on like a tweet about Kamala Harris, but I'm not gonna get into that. I want to talk about how she talked about like voting turnout and how voting is so important, and I think it raised by so much like the voting turnout
Mhm.
that year. It was so crazy.
I heard about that. And it's crazy. Like you have see, look at the power of just one person saying something. Like, yeah. Yeah. Insane.
Yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, that's really good because I think my grade, like the class of 2028, is like the cutoff because we're gonna be 18 when
Mhm.
we vote, right? And like people should be politically aware when they're voting. Like it's your choice to vote or not, but at the end of the day, like
Absolutely.
it's good for your country, man. Do it.
Yeah, and hey, that's one of the reasons we're here talking about this. Hopefully someone is listening. But
Yeah,
because we want to make you more aware of what's going on because it really does affect all of you.
yeah.
One
Like so,
thing
yeah.
yes, sorry.
No, no, no. I'm just saying for like 3 years from now, y'all should remember that we told y'all to vote.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I mean 2 years from now I will be old enough to vote, which is crazy. But yeah.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to go back to policy wise is we talked about research, we talked about leaders, improvement of social emotional learning. I also feel that when we talk about those rural areas not getting enough access to the services, telehealth is a big thing and it's becoming huge now. If you can't get the facilities here, bring them to you virtually. I mean, I can assume that they have access to great technology, but they'll have access to some technology and we can have people come in and speak to them.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like, yeah, you like increased resources, right? Because not everything can be physically, not everyone has the funds to like physically build
Hmm.
mental health facilities, but we could definitely do it online. Like, yes, it's money, but it's like way less money than actually like building stuff. And we should like spread those services, right? Because everyone deserves to have services of like every kind. When people in Africa were suffering with polio, we extended our hand and we helped them and we like
Hmm.
provided vaccines. We should do the same with mental health because it's also something that so many people go through, and it is like fatal depending on the like the scale of it.
Absolutely. I think one thing is to bring all of these policies we talked about, the ones we talked about during the school day, the policy nationwide ideas. Um, we need to incentivize school districts to actually participate in this because, and one good way to do that is to correlate their ranking as a school, their, status as a school to the mental health of the student and do a thorough examination of that because schools are extremely concerned about their ranking.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because ranking is a huge thing for like literally every single person, whether it be a student or like schools or like in voting. If you set up like any kind of leaderboard system, I swear people do their best to like
Oh,
get on top of
absolutely.
that leaderboard. I think it's such a wise system though, like if you use it right.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you also wanted to say something, touch upon diversifying testing, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking that right now I feel like the testing standards aren't really fair in the sense that we
Hmm.
only test like a couple of things, right? For example, the SAT only tests English and math. And while maybe
Correct.
like you're good at English and you're bad at math, maybe you're bad at math, but like you're good at math, but you're bad at English. And I feel like it's not really a fair system, right? And these
Hmm.
like whether I get like a 1600 on the SAT or not isn't gonna help me in my
Correct.
workforce. We should talk about like we should I think it's called a PBL, testing project based learning.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you basically interact with people and you set off like real world problems that people interact to solve. For example, like design a nutritious diet with taking into account budget, sustainability, production time, ingredients, and account for allergies.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm taking in economics, I'm taking in nutrition, I'm taking in like
Hmm.
math and things like there's so many different factors that's taken into just this prompt. And it's actually going to be helpful because it helps you collaborate and it helps you think from different perspectives.
100%. And just one last thing I want to say on that before we wrap up is that there's that common saying where you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. I don't know if you've heard that, but that doesn't mean that you don't try out everything, you don't learn about every single thing. But not everyone is going to do well or has the capacity to do well on a standardized test. But I think project-based learning is a good way for everyone to learn about all the different topics out there while also putting a creative brain stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, I think this is the end to our first
Yes.
episode.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for listening. This has been
Yeah.
so fun.
hmm And we hope to cover more topics that are teen related in the future, so stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Goodbye.
Bye.